Greetings, YouTube. In the past month or so, I have received multiple requests about what is the role of a game master. Maybe there's something in the air, maybe people are moving back to school, and so they're going to be thrust back into their gaming groups, and they're now the designated game master. I'm not sure what it is, but I literally have received like 3 or 4 separate requests for this information. It's kind of interesting on some level. And I want to throw this out to the YouTube RPG Brigade and ask them what do they think being a game master means. I would like to actually get multiple comments about this with video responses if possible to this video. I need to get a polling, if you will. I want to hear what people have to say they think being a game master is. So I will now tell you what I think it is. A game master, to me, is a producer, a director, and every single character in the world that isn't a player character. That's a tall order. It is your job to make sure that the game gets organized properly. It is your job to make sure that there is a plot line, there are stand-in characters, the non-player characters, that there is some kind of sensible script on some level, even if it is just in your head. I know that there are people out there in our community that are exceptionally good at improving, the gentleman gamer being an example of one. I have been able to pull off improving in the past. In fact, I've actually done after-action reports where I've asked the players, okay, at which point do you think we left the reservation? That we left the adventure I had planned and then went into a territory that you had created by making decisions I hadn't been considering. And I've been very fortunate that most people can't figure that out. That they did not know when things went left instead of right, because players will always do something that you are not prepared to cover. It's what they do. I think they do it on some unconscious level just to mess with our psyches. Well, I realize that I have a somewhat traditional take on what a game master is, and that there are a lot of games out there that have a narrative structure, a lot of the games, say for example, that fall into the category that Microscope falls under, that are not as GM driven, that just aren't my bailiwick. They aren't something that I have any interest in, they aren't something I am comfortable with running, nor playing. It just isn't my thing. I don't play Canasta, it just isn't my game. I have no desire to play card games like that. So I know very little about them, and I have very little experience with them. But when it comes to game mastering a more traditional role-playing game, is that I don't know if that falls under old school or not. Someone can tell me. That's kind of the structure I see. And it can be difficult, can be very daunting for a starting game master. There are things I think you can do to alleviate some of that pressure. One is to help designate the players to handle certain tasks. For example, he said you can get someone to volunteer to be a note taker of in-game activity. So things that are going on in the game, they can keep track of them, so you can then look at them later, so know what you have to, important notes you have to remember. There may be things that went on that are not really important to the game or to you, or they may be plot hooks that you can use in a way that no one in the group thought of when the event happened. Having someone to catalog that kind of thing for you during play is a really big boon. When there are extra NPCs that, the players interact with a lot that are not GM controlled necessarily, designate them to a player. It's okay if a player takes on a second character. As long as it's someone that isn't making massively important decisions, or the GM can then step into those shoes when those decisions have to be made, and then step back out and let the player run the rest of the character, I don't have a problem with that at all. In fact, we've used that in the past where a lot of the time we would have, especially in 2nd edition, people would be playing their followers or retainers as well. So you could have a player character, and they could have 2 or 3 supplementary characters along with them. They could be loyal companions, they could be servants, they could be followers, men-at-arms, that kind of a thing. They did have one advantage, is that when the player character was out of action for whatever reason, they were off training. We had that happen on more than one occasion. When they're unconscious, when they've been kidnapped, when they're dead, the player has something to do because there's already roles right there sitting in front of them that they can then begin to give a little more depth to. The retainer suddenly has to step up into the role of the hero because the hero is out of action for whatever reason. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Admittedly, you may want to limit that for a new group. Maybe, baby steps. Give them one person or give them something very simple to run so that they aren't feeling overwhelmed. But as they get a little more, they get up to speed, maybe they can handle more of that kind of a task. So while the GM's role is central to the game, it doesn't mean that they have to handle all that juggling themselves. Spread it around a little so you're handling fewer things, on your plate right in front of you. You're not feeling overwhelmed, and that's just my opinion. Having notes is very important. I've shown in one of my tour videos, I actually showed one of the adventures that I create. I may do a video on that more specifically at some point in the future. How I actually create an adventure, a handheld adventure that I can write notes on, so that it's not professional, but it has all the pertinent information that I need for that adventure in a print form right in front of me, and I find that very helpful. Have lists of names, just random names, or a book. The Name-a-Nomicon, I think it was, that I think that's what it's called, but I did a review on that not long ago, a book of names. Having that nearby is helpful. If you're running a modern game or a science fiction game, a phone book is invaluable for that kind of thing. Flip, boonk, name, you're done. Those things are important, particularly if you could hide them, so that the player characters aren't aware that this person was a random encounter and they didn't have a name beforehand. It can give you an air of competence that maybe you don't have. And don't get bogged down in a lot of the details. Even I, who is a fan of the OGL, the D20, for example, when you're dealing with mooks, you can say they're 1-blow mooks, 2-blow mooks, or 3-blow mooks. If the player characters hit that 1-blow mook once, he's out of the game. You get the point. I'm not tracking hit points on the low-level mooks. It just wastes time. You have time. You want to have that time available for other things. So these little things, and not tricks, they're just little management tools that can make your life easier. I like having a GM screen not only because it screens and it creates a designation, a demarcation between you and the players. I realize there are people who don't like that. It's because I can put notes on the inside of the screen that I can move around and change over time. So I can have things right in front of me that are available, of course, with netbooks and tablets and laptops and smartphones. A lot of these things can be handheld electronic devices now, which is good. But you may want to limit those kind of tools that players have access to so they don't become distracted. That's a problem in any game. Distraction is never good to your game. You need people focused on the task. You're sitting around a table interacting with each other for a reason. You shouldn't be doing, text messaging to your friend or something who is in California when you are in Wyoming. So these are some of the ideas that I've come up with for what a GM does and how a GM can improve their game slightly if they're starting out. I have no idea if this information has been helpful. I hope it has been. And if nothing else, maybe it's defined where I'm lacking in my explanation. So if someone can tell me what else they need, what else do you need to know, and that I may have to do supplementary videos, and I don't have a problem with that. But I'm looking forward to things in the comments where people can tell me what do they think a Game Master is, and how a starting Game Master can handle things better than just feeling that wave of stress that make you be utterly overwhelmed when you realize that you are the producer and director and scriptwriter for the entire world. And again, video responses are appreciated. So tell me out there, all the people who have asked me, has this been helpful?